Imagine for a second that you're standing in a dimly lit, vaulted stone hall.
Just absolute suffocating silence around you.
Exactly. The air is heavy, just thick with this unspoken menace,
Mhm.
and you're standing before a king.
Right.
In this exact moment, this ruler is looking down at you, deciding whether you're his savior or, a traitor who's about to be executed in the most agonizing way imaginable.
It's a terrifying position to be in.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and joined by our resident expert, we are stepping into a really unforgiving ancient world today. We're unpacking this masterclass in political survival and shifting loyalties.
Yeah, we're looking at King Hammurabi and this mysterious young physician named Zayn.
And our mission today is to figure out how a single night of extreme claustrophobic tension, literally an assassination plot in a royal bedchamber, triggers a massive war between ancient superpowers.
Because the documents detailing this narrative, they require a very different kind of attention from us.
How so?
Well, we aren't just cataloging history here. We are studying human psychology under the most crushing pressure you can conceive. I mean, trust is entirely non-existent in this geopolitical landscape.
Right. Every word is a trap.
Exactly. Every single silence is measured. The fate of empires is hanging on these tiny, quiet decisions made in the dark.
And that terrifying dynamic really kicks off when Zayn, this young physician, steps forward in that heavy stone hall.
Yeah, the story he tells Hammurabi is wild.
It reads almost like a fever dream in the sources. Zayn claims that in the dead of night, this old woman led him through the winding, sleeping streets.
Just navigating the total dark.
Right, and she takes him to this derelict, crumbling house. And inside, he finds a wounded soldier bleeding on the floor, surrounded by desperate men speaking a foreign language.
And Zayn doesn't even speak their language.
No, he doesn't. But he reads their intent. He tells the king, they're methodically plotting your assassination.
And Hammurabi's reaction to this is what sets the stakes for everything that follows. He asks the only question that actually matters in that moment.
Which is,
Why are you telling me this? Like, why do you care if I live?
yeah, and Zayn's answer is just chillingly calculated. He doesn't beg for a reward or anything.
No, he just says he wants the king to live so the kingdom can prosper.
Wow.
Yeah, he appeals directly to the ruler's legacy, his ego, and he does it with this quiet, unshakable sincerity.
But, Hammurabi's a survivor of a brutal era.
Oh.
You don't survive by taking strangers at their word,
Yeah.
especially when that word involves a literal blade aimed at your back.
Absolutely not. So Hammurabi immediately constructs a trap.
He tells Zayn, okay, I believe you enough to keep you close, but if you're lying, your punishment will echo through generations.
Such an intense threat.
Very. And then the king forces Zayn to hide with him behind this floor-to-ceiling silk curtain right inside the royal bedchamber.
They actually build a dummy out of cushions and bolsters, right?
Yeah, they hide it under the heavy silk quilts of the bed. And then they just stand there in the absolute darkness and they wait.
It's like playing a deadly game of Schrodinger's traitor.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Because until midnight strikes, and until an assassin actually walks through that door, Zayn is existing in this impossible state. He's simultaneously the king's greatest ally and a dead man walking.
Right. If the floorboards don't creak, Zayn goes to the dungeons. His life completely relies on a murderer showing up to slaughter the guy standing inches away from him.
And you have to picture the physical environment the texts describe here. The lamps are turned down to this soft, flickering amber glow.
Yeah.
Long shadows are stretching across the cold marble floor. The silence in that room is described as agonizing.
Hammurabi is sitting motionless on a marble chair, looking like a stone idol.
He is a ruler actively confronting his own mortality, just holding his breath in the dark.
Waiting to see if death is physically going to walk through his door.
And every single second that ticks past midnight without a sound, it must have felt like a physical weight on Zayn's chest.
But then, the heavy curtain at the entrance finally stirs.
The assassin slips in.
Right. His face is totally shrouded. The sources say he moves with the fluid, predatory grace of a leopard.
He creeps toward the bed.
He raises a dagger and with just savage precision plunges it over and over into the quilts and the cushions.
And in that fraction of a second, the trap springs.
Hammurabi's hidden Abyssinian guards surge out of the dark. Their scimitars catch the amber light, and they just overwhelm this guy, pinning him to the floor alive.
You really have to look at Hammurabi in the immediate aftermath of that violence. A cold sweat breaks across his brow.
He's staring at the shredded cushions.
Yeah, and he realizes with visceral clarity that if he had gone to sleep in his own bed that night, His reign was over.
And surviving that night, standing there looking at the captured assassin, it permanently alters the dynamic between the paranoid king and the physician.
It proves Zayn isn't the assassin. But, just surviving doesn't actually grant you power in an ancient court.
Right, Zayn has to play a much longer, profoundly counterintuitive game here. The next day, Hammurabi is just flooded with gratitude.
He essentially offers Zayn the kingdom.
He does. He offers unlimited wealth, massive estates, anything he wants, and Zayn turns every single piece of it down.
He asks for absolutely nothing.
Wait, let's pause here. In a paranoid court where everyone is a mercenary, turning down unlimited gold seems incredibly dangerous to me.
It does.
Like, it screams that you have an ulterior motive. If you reject the reward, the assumption is you want the throne.
Right.
Isn't rejecting it a fatal miscalculation?
It's a massive risk, definitely. But it's the exact maneuver he needs to bypass the king's defenses.
How so?
Think about the currency of these ancient empires. Every courtier, every general, they all want something. They're bought and paid for.
Right, everyone has a price.
Exactly. So by refusing the wealth, Zayn strips away that mercenary label. He secures unshakable credibility.
Ah, I see.
He positions himself not as a sycophant, but as this incorruptible moral agent. He tells the king he only acted because it was the right thing to do.
And the psychology of that works flawlessly. Hammurabi is so disarmed by this lack of greed that he elevates Zayn on the spot.
He makes him special minister.
Yeah, granting him oversight of the royal guard and cementing his place by the king's side.
But the sources then reveal the hidden architecture of Zayn's true motives. When he goes back to his guest house later, the text describes him as ecstatic.
Because the assassination attempt, the silk curtain, the terrifying gamble of his own life, none of it was the end goal.
No, it was just a gateway, an incredibly dangerous one.
His true purpose all along was to bypass court bureaucracy, to warn the king about a cataclysmic war.
So Zayn is living this fractured life. By day, he's the trusted special minister in fine robes,
And by night, he's sneaking off to a dilapidated mansion to meet his companion, Yurka.
orchestrating grand geopolitical strategy from the shadows.
But to make Hammurabi listen to a warning about a foreign empire, Zayn needs undeniable physical proof.
And that proof is currently chained to a wall in the deepest dungeon of the palace.
Right. 2 days after the attack, they descend into the dungeons. And the interrogation of this assassin is just a study in brutality.
The assassin is sullen at first, refuses to speak.
But the moment the guards pull white-hot iron rods from a brazier and bring them near his eyes, he breaks completely.
He confesses everything.
He reveals that King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon sent them.
Now, the accomplices from the derelict house are long gone. The texts say they vanished like smoke.
But the damage to Hammurabi's security is done. Zayn sees this narrow window where the king is vulnerable, and he drops a bombshell.
He tells him Babylon isn't just sending assassins. Nebuchadnezzar is planning to march his vast army on Yemen this coming spring.
We have to establish the staggering power disparity here. Hammurabi is strong, but Babylon is a sprawling war machine.
Right, an invasion of Yemen is a tidal wave that will wash over Hammurabi's kingdom.
The king falls into total despair. He knows his forces alone can't survive Babylon. He's staring at the annihilation of his people.
And this is where Zayn reveals his masterstroke.
He tells the king, we won't face them alone. He reveals that the queen and Prince Marud of Nineveh, who the whole world thought were slaughtered by Nebuchadnezzar, are alive.
And hiding in a dusty border village inside Hammurabi's own kingdom.
Plus, General Asher is awaiting in the mountains with loyalist troops. If they revolt when Babylon attacks, Babylon gets caught in a massive two-front war.
The mechanics of power Zayn uses here are just breathtaking.
But hold on, isn't that literal treason? Zayn has been secretly harboring foreign royals, hunted by a superpower, inside Hammurabi's borders without telling him.
He smuggled a lit fuse into the kingdom and hid it in the basement.
Exactly. Confessing that to a ruler who executes people on mere suspicion is an astronomical risk.
It is. Under any other circumstance, he'd be executed immediately. But the brilliance is entirely in his timing.
Right, he didn't tell him on day one.
No, if he did, he'd be a liability. He waited until he literally saved the king's life. He waited until he proved he couldn't be bought.
He waited until the king heard the threat directly from the assassin.
And he waited until Hammurabi was drowning in despair. Zayn didn't just bring a massive problem to the king. He waited until the tension was at its absolute zenith and handed him the exact kingdom-saving solution.
The manipulation is flawless. Hammurabi is stunned, but the despair lifts. He immediately orders full military preparations.
Zayn's grand strategy is locked in.
But the narrative takes this deeply unsettling turn, because we realize that Zayn's entire master plan relies entirely on one fragile detail.
The hidden royals have to remain undiscovered.
Right. Grand strategy rarely survives contact with ordinary people. So we zoom out from the marble halls and we travel to this quiet border village.
Where that massive secret is actively unraveling.
The contrast of scale is striking here. The queen and prince are in a suffocating secret basement beneath a lush garden.
The garden belongs to the uncle of Kanu, one of Zayn's associates.
And the royals are following strict instructions to only walk in the garden at night. They're totally disconnected from Zayn's political victory in the capital.
Meanwhile, Nebuchadnezzar's agents are actively scouring these villages. The sources focus on two specific spies,
They're disguised as innocent potters, leading a donkey laden with earthenware.
pretending to be exhausted tradesmen, but their eyes are scanning every face, every shadow.
And on one brutal hot afternoon, they stop for relief near a cool spring.
At the very edge of the exact garden where the royals are hiding underground.
And this is where the grand narrative narrows down to a polite, devastatingly dangerous conversation. The owner of the garden, the simple, kind-hearted uncle, walks through the trees.
He asks why they're on his land.
And watch the spy's reaction. They don't use weapons or threats.
No, they adopt this posture of pathetic humility.
They bow, they offer a meek apology. They claim the cruel sun was just too much, and they promise to leave.
It's terrifyingly effective.
It's like modern social engineering or, phishing scams.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Like, a hacker doesn't always smash through a firewall. Sometimes they put on a delivery uniform and look exhausted, so a kind employee holds the secure door open for them.
These spies use the uncle's own empathy as a weapon to extract lethal intelligence.
It works instantly. The uncle feels remorse, worries he was too harsh, and the spies sense that shift.
They gently draw him into a pleasant conversation about the weather, the garden, his life.
And the uncle, driven by guilt, just answers openly. He has no suspicion at all.
But the spies are meticulously taking mental notes. They notice subtle details in the garden's layout that don't fit the picture of an empty space.
By the time they politely thank him and leave, they've made a lethal calculation.
They know anyone hiding from the daytime cheat and basement has to come out for air eventually.
So they decide to stake out the garden under the cover of darkness.
It's a profoundly quiet, devastating moment.
We started this deep dive in a royal bedchamber, feeling a king confront his own death. We watched Zayn reject wealth, orchestrate alliances, and build a massive two-front war.
And every single thing he built, all that grand strategy designed to save thousands of lives, is now hanging by a thread.
Because while kings confidently debate armies in vaulted halls, the actual fate of this impending war will likely be decided tonight, in a quiet garden, by two spies waiting in the trees.
It really forces us to confront how fragile historical turning points are. We study treaties and kings, but the fulcrum is almost always something incredibly small and entirely human.
Leave you with something really heavy to consider as we close out today. Picture that dark garden tonight.
Picture the old man going to sleep, thinking he just had a nice chat with two tired potters.
Zayn controlled kings and moved armies across the continent. Yet all his brilliant planning might be undone simply because a kind old man made polite small talk with a stranger.
It's chilling.
It really is. And it raises a question I want you to sit with in the dark tonight. How much of the history that shapes our world was truly decided by the grand strategies of leaders behind closed doors, and how much of it was actually determined by the people we accidentally, innocently invite into our gardens?